Welcome to Books in Action. I'm Jim Horton. We are talking with Laura Huemer, the owner of Gold Finch Bookstore in Maplewood, and tonight we are going to go through many of the books that people are reading, and we thought we would start tonight with children's books. And we have a series here. This is Pop-Up Heaven. Is that not right, Laura?
It is.
Let me start here.
It just happens that this year there are some really excellent gimmicky books, and I really think that they're terrific gifts. The first is Matthew Reinhardt's new book, pop-up book on Star Wars, and if you want to turn to the last page, I think the highlight really, I mean it's a gorgeous book for kids as well as adults, but the highlight I think is the light up lightsabers on the last page.
There you have them, green and red lightsabers. And it pops right out.
It's really a gorgeous book there. I don't even know how many pop-up pages there are because there are a number of smaller pop-ups within each page, but it's very sophisticated production. So
okay.
Definitely one for adults as well as kids, I think.
Well, we're going to put this down, and then we're going to go to the, let's do all the pop-ups, or pretty much most of them first.
Sure.
And we have a girls, this is a girls pop-up
I would
book
say,
first.
yes, primarily, yeah. How to Find Flower Fairies, and it's just a beautifully made book. If you want to open up one of the pages.
Sure.
Again, one of these really intricate,
look at this.
Yeah, it's really lovely. And fairies have been a very hot subject area for girls for the past year or two, definitely. I think, in fact, my fairy section is more popular than my princess section now. So.
Okay, well, this is definitely quite a beautiful book. Let me just open up one more page
here. Really
here. Look at that. That is quite something.
Yeah, it really is. Okay,
and let's put this one down now and go to the Dinosaurium.
Yes, and this one isn't pop-up per se, but it includes a number of small books within the pages. So if you want to open it up, some of the books, you can see some of the smaller ones. And so it just adds a little interest to
Let me get my hand over here, and you see that each one of these little books opens up and has more information in it, right?
Yeah, and I think it's really clever. And in the case with all these three books, I mean, they're gimmicks, but I think that the content is really substantial as well. So I mean, this is really excellent. Has tons and tons of content about dinosaurs, and so I think it's an excellent gift for the dinosaur.
Okay, let me put it here one more time, and maybe she can get a closer shot of it, the Dinosaurium.
It's very striking, isn't it?
I like that bilious eye they're staring out at you there.
Yeah.
That's quite something.
It's catchy.
Okay. So moving right along then, I think what we'll do next is, now this is a chapter book, right? The Dangerous Book for Boys?
Well, I don't know if you'd call it a chapter book per se. It's actually a difficult book to categorize. Probably a lot of people have heard of it. It has been on the Times bestseller list, off and on it. We file it in our store in the parenting section, actually, even though it's targeted toward the kids as well as the parents, really. And it's a nice old-fashioned book about things that boys like to do. So it's, how to tie knots, how to identify insects, and how to play stickball, neat follow-up and nicely produced. And then the follow-up is
The follow-up is the Daring Book for Girls.
Yes, and one of the things I like about it in particular is that it does include several topics that are not stereotypically girl areas of interest. So, there's a chapter on public speaking, for example, or how to negotiate a job. And it's really, I think they're terrific books, and I think they're going to be around for a long time. And the Daring Book for Girls is, right now, it is on the Times bestseller list itself. So.
Okay. So that would make
nice.
a good gift.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Then we go to one of my little favorites, Olivia.
Yeah, she's a terrific character, isn't she?
Yes, she is a terrific character, and we'll show the cover, and then I want to show at least one inside.
Oh yeah, you should definitely show the last page, because I like it that she, without giving away the ending too much, she ends up finally falling asleep before Christmas and dreaming of herself in the Nutcracker. So there's a really sweet picture of her dancing in the Nutcracker.
Okay.
I think she's great.
That is a very, very lovely drawing. Okay, now that's the children's books right now that have been doing the best.
Absolutely, those are the hot books for kids, definitely.
And so where should we turn next? Should we turn next to the novels?
Sure, that sounds good.
And which ones would you like me to start with? The Bridge of Sighs?
Sure, that's
great.
great.
Let me pull this and we'll show this now. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this one.
Absolutely. Well, Richard Russo, who happens to be my favorite author, he won a Pulitzer for Empire Falls, which a lot of the customers in our store anyway really enjoyed. A lot of book clubs chose it. And this latest novel is a slight departure from his others in that almost all of his novels are set in upstate New York, kind of rundown towns, which part of this book is set there, but also part of it is set in Venice. Mm-hmm. And actually, I was fortunate enough to see Richard Russo speak at the 92nd Street Y recently, and he specifically mentioned that he was able to include a different setting because his wife finally dragged him to Italy. So, anyway, so part of the book is set in Italy, and there's terrific character development, which I think is really his strong suit, and some wonderful symmetry in this book. So I definitely recommend it.
This is one I'm assuming the book clubs will be are already reading.
Well, I not a lot of book clubs have chosen it yet, but a lot of them wait for books to come out in paperback. So most book clubs, in fact, like to stay away from the hardcovers because there'll be one or two members who prefer not to spend the big bucks. So.
Okay, so which one should? Let me put this one down now.
Sure.
Which one should I take next here?
Whichever you like.
How about the
Thousand
Splendid
Suns?
Suns? Mm-hmm. And hope we don't lose our book road here. There we go.
Well, this book has been, doing very well on the bestseller list. It's the second novel by the author of The Kite Runner, also set in Afghanistan, and also an epic war story, including a friendship theme and a family theme. It takes place over 2 generations, and some of our customers actually prefer it to The Kite Runner. So, and The Kite Runner is still on the Times bestseller list. So, really a phenomenal success.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's just bring 2 of them down here.
Sure.
And there's the next one that I think we should look at is Run by Anne Patchett.
Yeah. Well, a lot of readers know her best for her book Bel Canto, which was beautifully written. And this book I enjoyed as well. It's not quite as unusual maybe as Bel Canto, but it's a wonderful story. It's about a family in Boston, and the father is a former mayor of Boston, and he and his wife adopt a baby black boy, and they have a son of their own as well. And his wife shortly thereafter dies. I'm not giving away too much, trust me. And anyway, so he ends up raising these 2 boys, and a series of events, in their early adulthood, really bring to light a number of issues about class as well as race and family duty, and so a lot of really interesting topics. And she's a wonderful writer, so I definitely recommend it.
Okay. And I think the next one we'll move to here is Water for Elephants, Sarah Gruen.
Yes, this is it's been a terrific success, been on the bestseller list for a very long time. Wonderful, solid story. Actually, I think it's the easiest book to sell since Secret Life of Bees. It's just a story that you can just safely hand to somebody and say, you will enjoy this book. Excellent characters, male and female, really good story. So a terrific book, deserves to be as successful as it has been.
All righty. And here, I'm going to reach over here for this is well, not quite the last novel. There's a couple more to go, but this one is very important.
Yes.
Because I believe this is the first retranslation of War and Peace in quite some time.
Oh, you could be right about that. The important thing that I know about this translation is that it's the people who did the critically acclaimed translation of Anna Karenina, which I was tremendously impressed with. This husband and wife team, and they live in France, and they really have been universally acclaimed for their translations. And the thing that I really like about them, because I'm not a scholar, I didn't really think I would be able to tell the difference in translations, but one of the things that they do differently from other translators is that they don't deviate from how Tolstoy originally wrote the words. So if Tolstoy uses the word beautiful twice in one paragraph, that's what they do. whereas previous translators have taken the liberty of changing the second beautiful to something that, you know, another meaning of beautiful, and it ends up complicating the language. And so in fact, their translation of Anna Karenina, I felt, was refreshingly simple. So I may even pick this one up.
Well, this is one that I guess it's sort of like reading Moby Dick. You do it for months, not for days.
Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
I've read a great deal about this, and I understand that it's of all, there haven't been that many translations. But this one certainly ranks up with the very best of them.
Well, actually, maybe if I do pick it up, I'll actually read War and Peace, because the first time I read it, I only read the peace parts.
Maybe if I can have you
Sure.
reach over and grab The Almost Moon
Yep, this
by
is
Alice Sebold.
This is a new novel by the author of The Lovely Bones. Again, a very provocative and sensational setup. The first line here, if I could take it.
Sure.
This will give you some idea. The first line is, "When all is said and done, killing my mother came easily." So she sets you up there. Yeah.
That's certainly a way to start a book.
It is. It is. She's pretty fearless. That author, definitely.
Okay, and this then I believe is the last of our novels, and let me bring this one up here so people can see it. And this is I can't read it upside down.
The Abstinence
Teacher. The
Yeah.
Abstinence, Tom Perrotta.
Yes, and you know, he's gotten a lot of attention recently. I mean, his books do very well, but most recently, Little Children, which was made into a successful film. And this one, I actually heard him on the radio. He did a tremendous amount of research on this subject. The protagonist is a sex ed teacher at a high school, and she runs into a conflict with the town soccer coach, who is actually evangelical Christian. So it's a really interesting subject, and apparently the author does a really good job of exploring subtleties in human character.
And do you know where this takes place, or is it not given really a place where this
I
this
don't
happens?
know. No. Most of his settings are fairly, you know,
Neutral.
right? Exactly,
Yeah.
like the American suburbs. So.
All right. Well, let's turn then, while we have a couple seconds before we go into the break. If you would hand me the one of the humor
Yes.
books. We have a couple of humor books that we can certainly look at. And of course, this is one of our all-time favorites, The Onion.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I have to say that the Onion produces, they've produced a lot of books, and this one is distinctive, I'm happy to say. And initially when I saw the format, I thought, what are they doing with this hardcover? And it's actually it's intended to look like an atlas. And it's a complete spoof of an atlas, set up like an atlas, you know, one country per page, and very, very funny and quite irreverent.
Which is why you advised me not to open it on the air.
Well, you never know what the page is going to say, but really.
Can I peek slightly? And
You
then
may.
maybe,
After the show, Jim.
after the show, we'll peek, and maybe I can.
You don't want to offend anyone, no.
Okay. Well, we do have to take a break, and after the break, we'll come back and we'll look at the other books that we have here.
Okay.
And we'll be right back.
The Times recently separated out mass market versus trade fiction books, and I think that's had an effect on.
Are you guys ready for the next segment?
Let us talk for a couple more seconds. We've got to
Okay.
do a couple of questions here.
I mean, I'm just trying to think of something, you know. So maybe if you want to discuss what's popular, like any big trends lately, I could say something about that, because I do think it's an interesting opportunity for trade paperback fiction, which is more contemporary literature, as well as mass market. But in our town, the trade paperback fiction sells very well, and consequently, it used to be that the mass market and the trade paperback fiction shared 15 spots on the Times bestseller list. Now there's 15 for each because they're separated.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
I'll tell you what, we'll go through.
If we need to.
We'll go through Colbert. We'll go through Colbert, and then I'm going to ask you that question
Yeah,
before we go
whatever.
into history.
Okay.
All right, we'll do that.
The only thing you're doing is you're hitting your mic in your mic cable with the
Oh,
books.
with the books.
You're holding them fine. Just don't smack them against your tire or against.
Okay, is it making a lot of noise?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
That's
You want
okay.
something else?
No, nobody's
No, I'm
listening.
all right, I'm all right.
Nobody's listening to Jim anyway.
Yeah.
All right, we're ready to roll, guys.
I'm just kidding, Sarah. There's also very few political nonfiction bestsellers right now.
All right, well, let's go. We're back in Books in Action, and we're talking with Laura Huemer, who is the owner of the Gold Finch Bookstore in Maplewood. And we have gone through a lot of books in very short order. We want to go through one more humor book, and then I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we'll look at some of the history books that we have here and some of the others. But the next book that we want to look at from the humor books is I Am America, and You Can Too.
And so can you.
And so can
Yes,
you.
yes.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
I'm
understandable.
trying to do it from memory. I'm not doing so well.
Well, Stephen Colbert's book is it's just hilarious, and it's really beautifully produced, actually. And one of my favorite things about it is there's a whole page of award stickers so that you can award your own.
There we are.
Yep, your own Stephen T. Colbert awards for literary excellence to other books that you think are worthy. You know, of course, he is the first winner. His book is the first winner. So.
And I'm assuming that this is highly irreverent as well.
Oh yes, highly. There's one chapter, for example, for speaking about the elderly, and so in large print are all praise for elderly people in their wisdom and their compassion, and then in small print, you can imagine it's not pretty, not pretty.
So I suppose this one's probably going to be given as a gift to quite a few people as well.
I suspect so. Yeah, I think it's #1 right now on the bestseller list, and has been for a little while. So.
Speaking of that, the bestseller list has changed a great deal lately. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. The New York Times bestseller list made a decision a couple of months ago to make a separate list for mass market paperback fiction and versus trade paperback fiction. Now,
give me an example of mass market and trade.
Right. So mass market books are the smaller books, like and in general the faster reads. So like Grisham and Danielle Steele, and not all trashy fiction by any means, but definitely the lighter reads. Mm-hmm. And then your more contemporary literature, like Water for Elephants, for example, and any of the literature I brought here today would be out initially, at least in paperback, in the trade size, which is a lot. Here's an example of the trade size.
All right.
That's a trade paperback. So what the Times decided to do was separate the two areas of fiction. And I think it was a logical step, because in general, there are different readers and different times that you would want to read a trade paperback versus a mass market paperback. Mass market paperbacks are what you read on the airplane, or what you read in the Bahamas,
or
possibly.
going to work on the train in the morning,
Exactly,
which is where I see many of them being read.
Just
yes.
a quick read, So it's interesting because now there is room, instead of for 15 paperback fiction books on the Times bestseller list, now there's room for 15 in mass market size and 15 in the trade paperback size. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a good move, because they're different categories, and So there's room for more of the trade paperbacks to be bestsellers, which is a good thing. And it helps them sell, helps bring it to people's attention. So I think it's been an interesting shift.
One of the things you mentioned during the break was that there are some areas of books that are not doing so well right now, where there doesn't seem to be a lot of standouts. Could you get into that?
Sure. Well, I think one of the areas is in the kids' chapter books. There are no real front runners right now, aside from the obvious Harry Potter.
Yes.
And also, something I've noticed that's different this year is in the nonfiction bestsellers, there aren't as many political books as there were a year ago.
That's rather surprising, isn't it, given the fact that we're in a presidential campaign season?
Absolutely. I mean, there are a few, but not nearly as many as there were last year and the year before, I'd say, around this time of year.
Now, do you think that there must be a spate of those coming in 2008, I would assume?
Well, they come out fast and furious, I'll tell you. So we can only
book.
hope. Yes, exactly.
Okay, well then why don't we turn now to some of the histories and other books that we have here. Let's take the trade book that we were looking at here, and it's The Omnivore's Dilemma, A Natural History of 4 Meals. Now, I think I know a little bit about this one, but maybe you can help us a little bit with it.
Oh yeah, well, we've been selling it really well, and actually Michael Pollan also, he has a new book coming out in January that is even more opinionated on how you should be eating, but in a good way, you know, really trying to educate the public about where their food comes from and help them, you know, give them more information about how to develop a healthy lifestyle.
Now, if I recall correctly, this particular book goes all the way down to the basics of gathering the food and all the way up through the preparation. Is that not correct?
That is correct, and I think that really equally as important in the success of this book is Michael Pollan's writing style. I've really heard a lot of praise about how he has told this story.
Yeah, he's, I believe, part of the what we would call the small farming movement, which of course causes the large farmers to be apoplectic, but yes,
Sure.
there is a grow moving, it also called the slow food movement, I believe, at the same time.
Yes.
All right, well let's turn now to Tom Brokaw and Boom.
Yeah, I think this is a fun idea. You know, Tom Brokaw had tremendous success with the Greatest Generation books that he did. He did a couple of them, and this one is Voices of the 60s, so people talking about their lives during the 60s. And so I think there's going to be a great demand for it. It just popped on the bestseller list a couple weeks ago, and I think we're going to sell a lot of them.
Okay. So from that, we'll move all the way back to what Tom Brokaw did a long time ago, World War II. This is The Day of Battle, the war in Sicily and Italy, 1943 to 1944.
Yeah, and Rick Atkinson, I don't read history. You do, though, don't you, Jim?
I read a fair amount of history, yeah.
And I know he's very highly admired history writer, and he did win the Pulitzer for An Army at Dawn. And this has gotten really good reviews. Have you read it yet?
This particular one I haven't read yet. I'm fairly familiar with the battles that occurred, and it was truly some of the most vicious battles in the European front in all of World War II is what he's writing about here.
Yes, and actually, and this book specifically focuses on Sicily and Italy, the battles fought there.
Yes,
so,
exactly. And in those two particular areas, the Germans were well dug in, well defended, and almost impossible to dislodge for quite some time. And so it was a very unhappy experience for everyone. So this is probably going to be somewhat of a tough sledding book for those who read it.
Probably.
Okay. Let me now lean over here. Let me move over to a rather odd book, which is covered in AstroTurf. This is the sports book.
I think it's very clever, really. I mean, DK does a great job with their books, and I think it was really clever of them to put this, you know, the cover in AstroTurf. It's a book about different games and the rules of the games, basically, and the tactics and techniques. And I think actually, you know, initially that might not sound like something that, for example, you would be interested in, but I think there are some very unusual sports in here.
Well, maybe we could just open to here's one, water polo.
Right, exactly.
And so you have the full instructions for that. Okay.
So the real sports fan, I think, actually, this would be a nice addition to their library.
Well, of course, there's always golf, which is
Yes,
a
yes.
good walk ruined or spoiled, I think is the term. Okay, well, this is, I guess, there's something to say for a rather unusual cover.
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
that looks quite interesting. All right. Oh, I'm going to lean over here now, and let's take a look at our last one with, of course, Oliver Sacks and its Musicophilia.
Yeah, there have been a couple books actually recently about the effect of music on the brain. And I think the whole area of brain research has really been growing rapidly, in the last few years. So I'm thrilled that Oliver Sacks, a respected author, has come out with this book, and it's been very successful so far. And I think in our community, especially with the number of musicians that we have, it's been very appealing.
If I think I've read somewhat about this book, and I believe this is one where he looks again at people with particular brain conditions that may not remember anything else but can remember music, for example.
It's
which is
fascinating.
Oliver Sacks always seems to find these people. I don't know how he does it, but
Yeah.
I suppose it's his position. So that's the run of the books that you're recommending right now. Are there any second tier below that particularly in history that you would think that people should be looking at right now? World War II books, Vietnam books.
There is a companion book to the recent series on the war, and
World War
that
II,
actually has
Rick
been
Burns,
and that has been selling well. And actually, I have to say that although the prospects for the retail industry in this holiday season are fairly poor. In fact, I recently got a call from the Times business section to discuss what I was doing to prepare for the projected poor holiday season. But actually, I'm happy to note that the book industry is not particularly pessimistic about the season. And I was just reading in Publishers Weekly that they were anticipating a good fourth quarter, which made me happy because otherwise I would have been living in ignorance. So, and I'm fortunate too that I think our community has really a continuing commitment to supporting independent businesses. It's really a conscious choice, and our town makes it. They realize that it adds to the character of their community, and I don't think that they want a town without a bookstore, which is nice.
Has the flow of books increased, slowed down? You walk into a bookstore and you can't imagine where there would be enough people to read. That's everything that's in there. Do you still keep continuing to get a huge flow of titles?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that that one of the factors is the speed of publication. And I'm not an expert on this, but it seems to me that the turnaround time can be very short these days. Mm-hmm. I mean, the political books that we've seen over the past few years are a perfect example. I mean, we've had so many books about the sitting president. It's amazing, and that didn't used to be the case. It used to be after the fact the book would finally, hit the shelves. So no, there's really no shortage of books to choose from. Absolutely, and one of the problems that I had in discussing the projected poor fourth quarter with the business writer was that our business is still growing. So we fortunately have had increasing sales.
Mm-hmm. Do you find, though, that these Insta books, if you want to call them that, tend to be somewhat shallow, like overnight and maybe not considered or thought out very well?
I think it depends on the author. It's really, I think it's difficult to generalize about that. I mean, some writers are prolific, and it doesn't necessarily take away from the quality if it's quickly produced, I don't think.
Yeah, because I'm of the old school, which is that you really can't write a history until about 20 years after the event, and it seems like you're quite correct that we're getting histories now before the events are completed.
It is a little scary. I think you do open yourself up to criticism, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're just about wound up. Is there any last area of books that people should be aware of that maybe are not doing as well or maybe are doing well? Gardening, cookbooks, anything like that?
Well, cookbooks are always a big seller, and I think actually there has been a slight resurgence in the interest in cookbooks, maybe because of the Food Channel. So we do very well with them, and there's some really nicely produced ones out there right now. So.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time and for bringing around a huge stack of books for people to consider, and many of them are ones that I would like to have on my own shelf. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Laura Huemer, the owner of the Gold Finch Bookstore in Maplewood, and we have been going through lots of books here tonight on Books in Action. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Jim Horton.
That's pretty good.
Pretty well.
We'll have to move it to the next one.